Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by Limra's Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatsky. Very glad you're with us. We are coming to you live a little earlier than scheduled to bring you the latest information and advice as the government shutdown continues and as millions of Americans brace for higher healthcare costs in the months ahead. The shutdown has placed the future of the Affordable Care Act's subsidies squarely in the spotlight, raising concerns about what coverage and what costs will look like in 2026. Meanwhile, we're right smack dab in the middle of Medicare open enrollment, with many beneficiaries facing higher premiums and big decisions. To unpack all of this, I am joined today by two respected voices in the fields of healthcare and retirement planning. Jo is a certified financial planner, Alliance Education Fellow, and author of Maximize Your Medicare. And Marcia Mantell, a retirement management advisor and founder of Mantell Retirement Consulting, is known for turning complex retirement issues into clear and practical guidance. Let me also just remind everyone that we are live today, which means if you've got questions on this topic, feel free to join us. Drop them into the comments. I'm watching. We'll try to get them throughout the show. We've got a lot to get to, so let's get started. Jay and Marcia, welcome to the show. It's nice to see you both.
Thank you, Jean. Great to be here.
Nice to join you, Gene.
So it's October 3rd, 23rd. The government shutdown is continuing. There is seemingly no end in sight. Much of the deadlock right now centers on, as I said, the subsidies, the premium subsidies tied to the Affordable Care Act. People have gotten very used to having these subsidies in place, and it has enabled millions to afford their health insurance. Marcia, can you explain how these work and why they're at the center of the debate in Washington?
Yes, indeed, and it is a lively topic, Jean. Thank you again for inviting me on. Let me start just back a little ways. 15 years ago, the ACA passed into law, so this afforded presumably many more people to get health insurance if they didn't have employer coverage and if they were too young for Medicare. So they got access to health insurance, but not affordability yet. So healthcare is expensive, right? It increases 2 to 3%, 2 to 3 times the regular inflation every year. So it needed to be affordable as well as accessible. So the ACA set up a format similar to employers where, the employer might pay 75% of the premium and you pay 25%. Well, the ACA said there will be two payers. You, the individual, will pay some amount to be determined, and then the federal government will offer these subsidies. And it all depends on your income. So if you're between 100% of the federal poverty level and 400%, that's the group the ACA is working with. It affords you the health insurance that you can't get otherwise. And that federal poverty level, to give you an example of what we're talking about, it's about $15,650 for an individual. So that'd be 100% of poverty level. So between that and 4 times that puts you in the ACA. But to afford it, because the premiums are high, you would have a sliding scale of how much you would pay. You might pay zero, or you might get no advanced premium tax credit and have to pay the full premium. So during the COVID pandemic, what happened was the original ACA rules were enhanced, and it opened up more options for more people to get health insurance. We really needed it during COVID. And so the folks who were around that 400% of premium of federal poverty level, they had a little bit more access to get the health insurance with some subsidies, and the total payments were dropped a little bit. It's those enhancements that are on the cutting room floor right now, because the big budget bill that passed this past July didn't include the extension. So these advanced premium tax credits, these subsidies, The expanded portion of them are set to expire this December 31st, setting up 2026 as an extremely expensive year for many people, millions of people already in the ACA. And that's what all the hubbub is about in Washington, that
Got it.
there's a
Got
big
it.
group of people who won't be eligible.
Well, and some of the estimates actually show that ACA premiums could double for some people next year, more than double, if these enhanced tax credits lapse. Jay, as you look at this picture, what are we talking about in dollar terms, and which groups are going to be hit the hardest?
So thank you for having me again, Gene. And what I'd say is a very complicated situation. The things that Marcia pointed out are absolutely the correct way to summarize it. It was always originally set to expire, these enhanced premium tax credits. So it is not that the One Big Beautiful Act intentionally discontinued the tax credits. It is just simply that the One Big Beautiful Bill Act did not extend it, right? It was originally intended to expire. That was the happen of the result of COVID. In dollar terms, for example, today, Iowa actually opened the open enrollment period for individual health insurance. And what they are seeing, $18,000 is absolutely in play. That people who are above 150% of FPL, which is the federal poverty level, which is a scale based on your household size and age, these are going to change. What it does is, and by age, what I mean is your health insurance premium is higher as you age. So your net price after the credits can be in the 5 digits plus per year for a household. That is absolutely an expectation. And let me just, last thing I would say is that I've been stating this since the tariff tantrum, that we could talk about different supply chain, this and that as a result, possibly. But what was almost certainly going to occur was a conflict here. We fast forward from the end of March when I posted this issue, and we are right here. Not a surprise.
But I think, not a surprise to you because you
Right.
were
Fair,
anticipating this. I do
fair.
think, and I'm judging from the traffic on my own Facebook group, which, we've got 20,000 women in the Her Money Facebook group. They are talking about this, and they are trying to figure out what to do. And for them and for anybody else who is watching, we're gonna try to give them at least, a semblance of help here.
Sure.
Marcia, Jay said Iowa's marketplace has already opened. The
Idaho.
Idaho, sorry, the ACA
Right.
marketplaces across the country, are many of them scheduled to open in about a week. What
Right.
do consumers need to know and do as they go about shopping, for their plans in the midst of all of this political chaos?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to be prepared for sticker shock. It's not small. Like, a 10% increase would be a lot to anything. We are talking, Jay's right. Some of these premiums are doubling, some are going up between 30 and 50%. It's going to depend on where you live and your income relative to that federal poverty level. So be prepared for sticker shock. The second is expect a lot more red tape. There are many new rules that also came about in the big budget bill to determine eligibility and to verify that. So, the ACA has been around for 15 years now. People sort of get in like employer coverage. You get into this routine where, oh, if I don't do anything, my plan's just going to roll over and I'll just take whatever I have. It's not that case anymore with the ACA. You have to reprove every year. There's no more automatic re-enrolling. So the process is different. The paper trail is different. So you need to be prepared for that. And then pulling together in advance your proof documents for verification of your employment, of your residence, of family members or people living in your household. all that kind of thing. There are new rules and requirements. So it's a big deal. And the sticker shock for me, Jean and Jay, that's really where the rubber meets the road. We can generically talk about prices are increasing, or on average, health premiums are going up 18%, some numbers, but it's when you see the real number. So I ran some numbers. There are a few states who already have their 2026 numbers out, assuming these advanced premium tax credit enhancements end on 12/31. And it is stunning. So I looked at Macon, Georgia, just to pick a place. For a 57-year-old, someone with $50,000 in income is paying this year $282 per month, which is already a big number, right? If you're only
Right?
making $50,000. But next year, for 2026, that will jump to $415. So not quite double, but almost double to someone's household income. In Minnesota, it's the same story. The numbers worked out to almost to the dollar, but it's different if you make $82,000. So now you're even higher in the federal poverty level. You're paying $575 this year. Your premium jumps to $770 next year. These are average numbers for the silver plans.
Is that a single person or is that a family?
A single person. This
Wow.
isn't even touching the families yet. So these are gigantic increases on top of everything else that's increased over the past couple of years.
Jay, pick that ball up. What is a person to do?
Well, I think, first of all, in addition to all of what Marcia stated, that it's complicated for everyone, meaning that, and part of that has to do with checking your network. When it comes to the ACA, the most complicated portion for me, for our clients around the country, is to make sure that everyone understands the insurance that they have or they want, that your doctors, hospitals accept that insurance. In Georgia, for example, the example that Marcia pointed out, it is a very fragmented state. Even though you are right there in a very highly educated with lots of people and universities, you would have thought that networks would have been not fragmented, that the opposite is the case. So that is first, because the last outcome I want to have for our people, for example, and for the public, is for you to purchase an insurance, which is already expensive, bring it to the doctor's office and find out we don't take this insurance. So this as a also say, like you said, Gene, I'm right with you in the sense of helping people, because most of my past 8 weeks has been in speaking with women's groups. I'm not going to be able to change traditional gender roles in our nation or across the world. That we know that the stack of administration sits at the responsible adult female in the extended household. There's no doubt about this. So absolutely, that this portion has to be thought of first, and then for people to understand that there are certain situations that paying for more insurance, more expensive insurance, may be painful but have a good reason. That also means the opposite is true, meaning that, candidly speaking, when I give private counsel to people and they are very, very healthy and they can afford, even if they can afford to drive down premium and be aggressive about it. Privately, I'm very aggressive with our clients if that is the situation, meaning that they have very good health, they don't have dependents, et cetera, the complications. And it has to do with understanding of insurance generally, and the fact that it's very difficult for all the stakeholders. So much so, if we take Georgia, I know we've just used one example, we can repeat it in other locations. Aetna has entirely left the entire state for the Affordable Care Act for 2026. Tough stuff.
So I understand what you're saying, and I actually want to get a little bit more specific about it, Jay.
Okay.
Essentially, what you're saying is that if you are a healthy individual, that you perhaps should not stress yourself out trying to get the ultimate gold, platinum policy, that for you, a silver policy or even a less expensive policy with a less expensive premium may actually make sense. Marcia, for most people these days, and can, if you could specifically address those people who are not 20, who are closer to 50, um, are high deductible health insurance policies going to be the way to save most people the most money and get them some form of health insurance? Because I listen to these numbers and I'm thinking millions and millions of people are going to just drop coverage.
That's the big fear. We don't want you to drop coverage, even if you are healthy. Anything could happen. It's an accident that could happen that you can't possibly plan for. So dropping coverage is not most people's best avenue. Yes, on the high deductible health plans, they are, the way they work, they're high deductible because you're going to pay more out of pocket if you get sick or get in an accident, but your premiums are lower. You also have the ability to save separately in this triple tax advantage vehicle called a health savings account, or the HSA. And that allows you to save up to, I think it's about $4,500 for an individual and about $9,500 for if you're covering a family. You can save that on a tax-free basis. It lowers your income tax obligation. You save tax-free, and you can take the money out even 2 weeks later if you need it for some health insurance or some health coverage, and it comes out tax-free as well. So it's a very powerful account. If you're sick, if you have a chronic issue, that might not be your best path. And for folks who are older, I'm a big fan. I'll just put that out there, of the HSAs. I think partly because Dad and I had to have one from the very beginning. He worked at a company where they eliminated all other options. So we got pushed into the high deductible health plan space years ago. And it has turned out to actually to meet Jay's objective, what he was talking about. We need to learn more about health insurance. It's not on anybody's plate, but if we learn more about it, and you're really forced to when you're in a high deductible health plan, you got to figure out how the system works, and you get to save over here. So it's a really effective way for many people if it's an option for them. So yeah.
It essentially, the taxation rules on a health savings account mean that any money that you even just move through the health savings account, you save about 25% on the cost of whatever you buy with that money. So whether it is a visit to the doctor, whether it's a prescription, that's how effective these accounts can be. Terry is asking, she missed the beginning of this conversation. She's asking if she's going to be able to rewatch it. Yes, we will post it. You'll be able to do that. If you're watching and you have a question about shopping for health insurance in this marketplace, whether you're on Medicare or whether you get your insurance from an employer or on the exchange, we're here to take those questions. So please post them in the comments. Coming to the employer marketplace, if you're somebody who gets insurance through an employer, your costs as well are going up. We know that employers will be passing a lot of those costs along. Marcia, before we move on to Medicare, are the rules for people who are shopping via employer coverage the same?
The approach to getting your health insurance is a little different. So instead of going to healthcare.gov, which is the ACA's entry point, so you would go to healthcare.gov, put in your state, and then it will take you to your state specific ACA marketplace. And that's where you shop and get your information about your ACA plans. If you're working for an employer who offers health insurance, this is open enrollment time for most employers. So you're right in the thick of things too. But you usually only get about a 2-week window. So what I'd say for this year, Jean, is again, be prepared for sticker shock. The prices are up overall. KFF just released their findings yesterday that for individuals, the total premium that we don't usually see is on average $9,300 per person in 2025. And it's expected to go up on average about 6% for 2026. So call it $10,000. You'll pay your share. Maybe it was 20% last year, and this year it's going to be 25%. So you're going to pay more. And in addition, your deductibles, so the amount you have to pay first before insurance fully kicks in, those are likely to increase as well. And we just got our plan information yesterday. I'm on my husband's plan, and our in-network, to give you an idea, so you have to budget for this. Our in-network, if we stay in a network, to Jay's point, you need to know where your doctors fall, which hospitals, and how they get paid. In-network is $6,000 for each of us, a $12,000 out-of-pocket family maximum. Well, we're a
Wow.
family of two. Our kids are long gone. So Dan and I, our exposure is $12,000 in an in-network plan. It is $24,000 if we end up needing to be out of network for some reason.
Yeah, that's a big hit.
Astronomical. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's not the premium. That's after we pay the monthly premium. We haven't seen those numbers yet. So it's big.
It's big. Jay, we're going to jump to Medicare in just a second. But before that, surveys show, whether we're talking about Medicare, whether we're talking about the exchange, whether we're talking about a plan you get through your employer, people just click the button and stay with what they have. What is the cost of this inaction?
Well, inaction, like I said, is, and has been implied here, is thousands of dollars running to a person that, especially if on the individual marketplace, employer, you have a subset, right? In other words, you may have a high deductible plan option and a standard option, if you will. These plans, generally speaking, I would say, if I had to overgeneralize, and I realize that the networks are more robust than the individual market, prescriptions handled slightly better, I would say, than the individual market. I would want to also point out one other thing, which is that, we need to realize that, and I don't want to gaslight, and I'm trying to very much keep away from anything that implies to the population that, you've done something wrong. The situation's complicated. So we're just trying to help in that. That said, if your portion as an employee is too high, there is a hardship exemption, meaning that your responsibility, depending on your income, you still may be able to get a subsidy and be off and into the Affordable Care Act.
How do you do
I
that?
do suspect, well, you have to file specifically. So this is a ratio, and this is moving. I don't have the exact, I want to call it nine odd percent, meaning that there's going to be a standard by which you compare. And so let's just say, for example, your employer kicked in some amount and your deduction is X dollars. If that X is higher than this ratio, then there are forms to fill out, shopping to do, but it is possible.
Is this
So
something that you find on healthcare.gov?
yes,
Okay.
this
So if this is something that you think you might qualify for, healthcare.gov is the place to go. I want to move on to Medicare because we are also in a scenario where premiums for 2026 are projected to jump. Marcia, can you run us through the various parts of Medicare and what folks on Medicare can expect in terms of costs for next year? Also, if you can explain what is behind some of those increases, that would be helpful.
Sure. There are I'll call them 5 ingredients to the main Medicare package that people would consider. So there's Part A that most people know about. That's your hospitalization coverage if you end up in the hospital during your Medicare years. There's no monthly premium to Medicare, but you pay usage costs for number of days in the hospital or number of days in skilled nursing. You can pay them if you don't have another option. Part B, that's how you pay your doctors and your outpatient. That's what we mostly know about and mostly use. This year, that premium is $185, the standard premium per person per month, $185. We don't have the numbers yet for 2026, but from the trustees report, we are expecting the jump to go to $206 per person per month next year. That's an 11% increase in the premium. And this increase is really due to the sheer cost of care in outpatient, in chronic illness management, of the Part B drugs, and in just the expense of using the healthcare system. So it's pretty hefty. Part D is your drug insurance coverage. And in this situation, as Jay mentioned, I'm shocked about the situation in Georgia. Well, actually, I'm not so shocked that Aetna pulled out. It's also happening in the Medicare side. So Part D drug insurers are pulling out of states. So you're going to see a reduction in the number of plans offered. You're going to see a reduction in the number of drugs covered on those plans. And the premiums are sort of all over the map. Some states still have $0 monthly premium choices. Other states do not. So it's all over. Then Part C of Medicare is the Medicare Advantage, these packaged plans. And here, same again as on the ACA side, a lot of the PPOs, the preferred provider organization options of Medicare Advantage, those are being eliminated or reduced network coverage. Doctors no longer accepting the plan, the insurance company no longer paying for network doctors. They're now out of network. And those plans that were zero last year, this year, may now carry a premium. One of the plans I looked at the other day is a PPO with $0 premium in 2025, going to a $48 monthly premium in 2026. And then there's Medigap. So the Medigap plans sit under A and B to help you pay your share of costs. And those just typically increase 4, 5, 6% per year. You can expect that in your local neighborhood for Medigap plans as well.
Jay, we talked before we got on the air here, and you made the point that these Medicare plans not only are insurers in and out of the markets, but the plans change. The drugs on the formularies change. The doctors in the network change. I, if you just stick with what you've got, it's quite possible that what worked for you last year is not going to work for you this year, correct?
That's certainly the case, Gene. So, like Marcia said, first of all, carriers are leaving. And so, if you've gotten a letter that says your plan is not being offered next year, you need to act like it's a must. And if you do not, you will have original Medicare by itself with no drug coverage if you originally had a Medicare Advantage plan that included it. I can't stress this enough that people throw away these letters from their carrier saying, okay, well, this is something that tells me bad news. I don't want to open it. That I get that kind of mail all the time, and I can understand that that is human nature. That said, this is a particularly difficult time, and urge everyone to not do this. That all said, in addition to that, yes, there's no doubt that the moving parts I try to explain in Maximize Your Medicare for over a decade, that to understand the very nature, the inherent nature here is that Part D and Medicare Advantage are annual contracts. That means that every single detail is up for change, subject to change every single calendar year. This has always been the case. This has always been the case. It just happens to be that we've got this incredible convergence of all of these moving parts and issues and debates nationally, locally. And now the spotlight is here. But this has always been the exercise here that you would check every year, because it could have worked in your favor. More extra benefits that you value very highly to improve your well-being for you, your spouse, your household. But so yes, is your bottom line. You'll want to check every detail every year. That is the way our world works. I don't think we're going back to a situation where you can set it and forget it.
Marcia, many people on Medicare will have a protected income coming in from Social Security, money they know they can count on. Perhaps they'll have an annuity or a pension. Some advisors recommend using that guaranteed money to cover fixed or essential expenses. What are your thoughts on this? And what do you think people should do? You mentioned the word budget earlier when planning to cover their fixed healthcare costs, things like premiums and those copays for the prescriptions that you know that you're going to need every month. Is this something that you should look to cover with some form of income that you know is guaranteed?
I am a big proponent of that exact strategy, Jean, that we line up essentially our essential expenses like healthcare, because it's a big expense. And then we need to know how we're going to pay for it. Part B, the premiums for Part B already do that automatically. So your Part B premiums automatically get pulled from your Social Security payments before you even get the deposit into your checking account. So there's already a piece of alignment there, which is great. And what I'd say is, yeah, if you have, whether it's Social Security or an annuity or a pension, this is your guaranteed stream of income. And you know you need to pay for food, housing, and healthcare, right? So those three buckets really should line up with your guaranteed sources of income, and make sure you know that you can afford all of the pieces that you need to have a happy, healthy home. And for me, it is the budgeting piece, and it's not only Medicare A, B, D, Medigap that you have to budget for. It's also all the stuff that you're buying at CVS, in the over-the-counter aisle. Not everything is a prescription that we need as we get older. So you need to plan for that, or for vision, to get your new eyeglasses, your hearing aids, dental. Even if you have a dental plan, you pay a premium in many cases, but it only covers maybe $1,500 of expenses for the year. Well, if you have a $3,000 crown you need to have budgeted already for that extra $1,500. So I have a free worksheet on my blog that you can see all the types of expenses that need to be budgeted for under, quote, Medicare.
Where would we find that worksheet?
Oh, it's on boomerretirementbriefs.com. And you
Thank
can
you.
look under the Social Security tab.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Jay, for all Americans, I think, including me, I turned on the morning shows this morning, and the barrage of TV ads for Medicare, it's overwhelming. How do you cut through the noise, whether it's a television ad, whether it's a robocall, whether it's an email or a text? How do you cut through the noise and understand what's valuable information for you?
So on the commercials that you see, first of all, if it's coming from from a carrier itself, it is highly unlikely that it is false or inaccurate. Every commercial from a carrier must be approved by the federal government in advance. I don't get to hit record and just start talking about plans. That is not what happens. When you're talking about calling a hotline to see if they qualify, a couple of things have changed to protect consumers. The practical reality is that I have told people on videos, or when I've been given the opportunity to how to prevent wrongdoing, is you can simply ask the person who calls you, what's your NPN?
What is
Because
that?
NPN is National Producer Number. It is a unique number for everyone with an insurance license. I have one. It's on my emails, meaning that you can't avoid it. And if the person is a legitimate person, then they will have it. They will be willing to share it with you. There's also some other protections beyond today, which have actually worked in the consumer's favor to prevent you getting 20 phone calls. You can get a phone call because maybe you filled out a form whether you intend it or not. What you will not have, should not have, in air quotes, should not have, is type from different organizations. So there have been some reports of this type of marketing wrongdoing. There have been a fair amount of restrictions on it that sellers